It was once pointed out to me by someone I talked to a fair amount at the parish that at least early on I would use my videos, since I film on Monday, to restate or recapitulate, I guess, something I said on Sunday, or to get my chance, if I wasn't on the YouTube Mass, to take the chance to get my quote homily out there. And occasionally I think that is true, and maybe that's part of my pride, something I need to work on. We all need to work on something. And at the risk of being busted on again by this guy, I am going to talk again about the Sunday readings and this powerful statement that both Father Data and I actually both preached on, this powerful question from Romans that we heard this Sunday. And Paul says, sort of recapping a lot of chapter 8 and everything the church in Rome had been through, what can separate us from the love of Christ? And he goes through persecution, famine, anguish, the sword, peril, all these sort of immediate temporal things that the church in Rome would have faced from the Roman Gentiles. And then he goes in this list of the more cosmic things, principalities and powers, the heights and the depths, the smallest things to the largest things, life and death, very cosmic realities. Can these even separate us from the love of Christ? And Paul seems to be insisting that no, nothing can separate us from the love of Christ. And that brings me up to the spiritual writer that I've been reading a lot lately, Martin Laird, who's brilliant, well-read, brings in all different spiritual writers throughout the centuries. And he says that, and I'm paraphrasing Laird a lot here, he suggests that we need to begin to annihilate this idea that there was ever separation in the first place. And I think that's important. Begin to annihilate this idea that God is always out there and we're always down here, that God created us and then sort of stepped back, that God maintains this certain distance from us so we go about our lives. That's deism. That has nothing to do really with Christianity. It has nothing to do with the Christianity and Judeo-Christian understanding of God, who insists in Genesis that he created us in his image and likeness. And even more so, it has nothing to do with Christianity and the fact that God became us. He entered, as I say over and over and over again, into our humanity in the deepest and most profound way, so to prove that he has no desire whatsoever to be separate from us. And Laird says that's where prayer comes in. He said that's what prayer is about, and he quotes a poet that says prayer, and now this is going to be a little strong, but bear with me, prayer is the annihilation of difference. Now, difference and separation, you can play with those words all you want, but I like prayer is the annihilation of difference, because it suggests that I am in God and God is in me. And while I'm not God, and I'm not saying we are, please don't mistake me for that, we're not different from God. We're part of God. God created us in his image and likeness. He spoke us into being. He baptized us into our life. He became man so that he could incorporate himself more and more into our humanity. And so we're not totally different from God, and we were never ever intended to be separate from God. And so my simple suggestion for this week is that you ask that question, what can separate you? What can separate us from the love of Christ? To just simply contemplate that word, separate. We're not supposed to be separate from God. We were never intended to be separate from God, and we're not separate from God. He loves us through everything. Some people have mentioned that, well, what about mortal sin? Doesn't that separate us from God? Well, according to definition, it breaks communion on our end, but I don't think that makes God quit loving us. I don't believe it. I believe that we have to repent, I get all that. But this God of infinite love has no desire to be separate from us. And so prayer, when I sit in prayer, and we all need to take some time to pray. Contemplation, Laird says it, spiritual writer after spiritual writer says it, is not just for monks. It's for all of us to sit in that presence of God and simply to embrace the fact there is no separation, and there is never separation to begin with. I think it was Ignatius of Alexander, or maybe it was Athanasius. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact church father. Said God became like us so that we could become like him. And so that's what our prayer should be. It should be a time to contemplate and to annihilate that idea that separation ever existed in the first place. Now, what's the outward benefit of that? Well, the less and less I believe that I'm separate from God in every way, and the more and more that I embrace that God's in me and I am in him, the more I embrace that I am radically loved by God. And that becomes the foundation of who I am. I am completely affirmed by that love of God, and there's really nothing the world can do for me. Then I become an instrument of unity. I go out as a Christian, even in my small circle of influence, and I repair separation. I seek to repair division, and I do all this because I witness the love of God in Jesus Christ and insist that God can never be separated from humanity. To me, this is such an important message. There is no separation. God is there with us, in us, and for us. And as Christians, that's the message we need to take out into this divided world. What a powerful, powerful witness if we simply went out and professed that. Imagine the change that we could make. What can separate us from the love of Christ? I don't know, but I would argue that nothing can. May God's love be with you always, and please stay safe.